tip. I'm also going to let you know last video I shared the fact that I'll make sure I'm not on mute here. CBT News every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern, I guess noon Central. I'm going to have a used car week show. I'm going to do interviews and everything there. You're going to be able to see, that's where I'm going to be bringing in industry experts, vendor experts, and doing interviews in dealerships, right? We're going to talk to some dealers out there and see how operations are working right now. And my used car stocking concerns over the next 90 days. And it might not be what you think. I was going to talk about a little bit when it comes to stocking. I love to have comments on this one. I got my Facebook Live going. Anybody comment on here, shoot me a comment as I'm speaking, because I'd like to kind of make this a conversation than just a video tip. But one of the things I was worried about, and a while back made the analogy that this almost seems like, and it could be because demand is still there, but it seems like the rush, like it used to be for used car stocking, like it was for the toilet paper and hand sanitizer issues back in last year when everything and the shutdowns and stuff were happening. And the funny thing is talk about toilet paper and people, I had this sense of urgency that I had to buy and stock up and buy more than I needed in case there wasn't any left for next time I came. And so there was a sense of urgency where people were buying toilet paper. Some people needed it at that time. Some people had to use paper towels because they couldn't find any toilet paper, and I get it. But the thing was, if you went to the store, Walmart, Targets, or wherever, grocery store, and there's you found a box or two or a package or two of toilet paper, you just grabbed it and bought it. It could have been the cheapest single ply toilet paper, but some people just buy it to have it, right? And so I get concerned a little bit with inventory levels. Again, I know, and please have any comments here, I know dealers' lots are thin. I know, I was just physically at a dealership on last Friday. He has 35 cars. He's on pace to sell 60 plus. He sold 60 plus on 30, 40 units the previous month. I do think if he got to 75 units that he'd like to have on his lot, he'd probably sell 100 plus. I get it. I understand there is that demand there still, but that will fade as tax returns and stimulus checks kind of fade away. It is still all up to new cars and trades and things like that. No one knows where this is going to end up. But my point here being, when it comes to just trying to stock right now, a lot of dealerships are stocking what they can get their hands on. Again, it's like the toilet paper scenario. It could be one ply, but they buy it just because they don't want to do without. So they're buying everything they can. But let's reverse that. And let's talk about how customers are buying. A lot of times they're settling too. If they feel a sense of urgency, if they looked at 2 or 3 cars and they sold before they even got a chance to get to the dealership to buy it, the next one they're looking at, even though it might not have the miles and the equipment that they want, they might have this sense of urgency and just buy it, right? So think about that. And across the board, a lot of dealerships that we're seeing across the country, I would say the average market day supply in most dealerships right now is in the 40s. I do think it'll creep up into I think it'll go up maybe in the 50s over the next 30 days as things slow down. But because remember, day supply is looking at a 45-day window. 45 days ago was still March when it was still strong, right? So you won't see, if people, I'm understanding a lot of people, and we're seeing it in some of our numbers, that it's starting to slow down a bit in April. So it won't be till end of May before day supply reflects that. So as that day supply builds up, as dealers start going back to buy inventory, let's just say it gets back to somewhat normal. I'm not saying, again, a dump. Things are going to start crashing. If shopper count activity is down 20, 30%, well, so is your inventory level. So that means it just kind of levels the playing field. Instead of more selling than what you have in stock, I think it gets back to normal, like what you guys experienced in October, November last fall after the big push, right? So it gets normalized here soon in May, probably May and June. So when that happens, when you actually do need to stock, are you looking at things like market day supply? And if customers are buying out of necessity sometimes, meaning they just bought what they can get their hands on, no different than the dealers are doing right now, how accurate is that demand index on those cars, right? Customers, if you're looking at, let's say, day supply, every car right now, I've yet to see too many cars that have over a 60-day supply. So 60 is the new 80 now, I guess, 80 and 90. But the customers are buying cars that might be their second, third, or fourth choice based on what was available at the time, and just a sense of urgency. And they felt like, well, here's the car and it matches somewhat what I wanted. So, 60, 90 days from now, when we're looking back and saying, okay, what should I stock? And again, what I mean by what we're looking back, market data is looking back 45 days in the past, 45, 60 days or whatever. Did I really, and even historically, looking at your own stats, did I really sell that car that fast at that kind of money because it was such a great car and I should try to duplicate and do that again? Or was it a supply and demand dynamic and the customer just bought it and they felt a little desperate and they paid what they needed to, right? So the metrics of what we think we could probably get next go around, again, I'm talking 60, 90 days from now, when we're looking back historically at what we sold ourselves or looking back at the market data, that looks back 45 days, how accurate is that going to be to rely on that? So that's going to be tough, and that's where you got to know a little bit of the old saying of core inventory, right? What's right and wrong on your lot typically, because right now you're going to buy what you can. Danny said, good stuff. Quarter 4, how much weight are you putting on VDP activity versus data versus other metrics? I'll answer that here in a minute. Question for you. I'm sorry, quarter 4. Question for you. How much? Okay. Here's the other thing. Well, going back to VDP, activity data, other metrics. We've seen a lot of VDP data, meaning you don't need as many VDPs to sell a car nowadays if they're selling that fast. Okay. Collectively, if you said, if you went back prior to COVID and said, okay, how many VDPs, and Danny, if this answers your question, how many VDPs does it take before a car leaves my lot? Maybe it took 25, 30, 40, whatever it was. And so now, okay, that's what I got to build up to get this car moved. Cars now might be leaving at 10 VDPs because they left your lot in 15 or 20 days, right? Photos didn't get done till day 10. We really didn't get that much VDP activity. And so now a lot of that VDP activity, it could be a lot lighter now to get a car off a lot than it was previously. I do look at engagement on VDPs. If it's up or down, that's going to be a dictation to me. If we're getting a lot of SRPs, but our VDPs are down, that maybe we're too high priced right now. And people are finding other alternatives. They're showing up in a search, but they're clicking on other cars than mine. So it's going to be tricky for a little bit, especially if it does slow down. And this VDP question's kind of throwing me off sideways a little bit but it's not, again, comes back to stocking. If I'm trying to find and stock cars that get a lot of activity, maybe those cars are just getting the activity due to, again, the sense of urgency that consumers felt, just like the toilet paper scenario I gave at the beginning. And so cars are leaving quicker. Cars are taking as less activity. So watch that. Again, historically, what's gonna be a challenge going forward is you're gonna need to know your core, your lot, right? You need to know what actually works and doesn't work on your lot, because historical data, meaning year, make, and model and trim, and they sold at this price at this age and stuff, it's going to be tricky. Or let's go buy these cars that have a 40-day supply. Again, I'm talking 60 days from now, 45 days ago, those cars are moving because out of necessity, customers grab what they could get their hands on, no different than you are at the lane right now, right? And again, going back to the toilet paper scenario, you bought the one-ply toilet paper, the cheap stuff, because that was the only thing left on the shelf, and because you're afraid that you won't have toilet paper, right? So looking historically at specific cars are going to be a little bit trickier now. Now that's where looking at demand and, we did a partnership with LotLinks. You get a lot of information out of there in our system, looking at demand and indexes and stuff. And that's going to be the key then going forward when it comes to stocking, is actually looking for what people are actively searching for and demand indexes and stuff, interest, demand, how many people are actually looking for that year, make, model trim. That's the information you're going to need, because again, historically, 60, 90 days from now, we look back at this window of time, cars could have been leaving faster pace for more money on a false indicators, right? False, because they just did it out of supply and demand. They did it out of sense of urgency. Again, go back to toilet paper. They could have, that one ply cheap toilet paper could have been twice the price, but it was the only piece of package of toilet paper on the shelves. People would bought it, right? That's what's happening with cars right now, both at the lane, and consumers are doing the same thing if you're doing them, right? So it's going to be tricky. Know what is core on your lot. Your Ford store, right? That's obvious. You probably sell Ford. You probably sell domestics a lot easier than you sell Toyotas and Hondas. Just depends, right? Unless you're really beating up on the Honda store across the street and blow their numbers, but typically not. Know your inventory, your data first. Know what's happening. Then look at demand indexes. What are people searching for? Again, lot links and some, inventory management tools provide that. That's what you're going to need going forward. Because again, I think some of the data is going to be skewed based on sense of urgency and stuff. So hope this was helpful. If you like a free inventory evaluation, see what we're doing, because we're taking inventory to the next level by looking at your lot first, figuring out what's the holes in your inventory, figuring out what cars are causing those problems. And then again, giving you some historical data. This basically trying to get you a lot of stuff that you might not get out of an inventory management tool you have, and a different perspective on how to react to your inventory right now. Lotpop.com. Check this out if it's on YouTube. Thanks, Danny. Danny said spot on. Check it out on YouTube. Subscribe. I also put it on podcast so you can listen there if you work out or anything, get bored and want to listen to car stuff. It's on there. Again, Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern, CBT News. They're going to start Used Car Weekly, going to start doing interviews with dealers and stuff there and vendor partners. And check that out. Thanks. See you later.